Over the last 25 years, I've had the privilege of interviewing and highlighting some truly interesting people. Everyone who is anyone, both the famous and the infamous, from presidents and their first ladies to kings and queens, movie stars and pop stars, captains of industry, heads of state, sports personalities, innovative entrepreneurs, and some pretty fascinating everyday people. Today, I'm proud to introduce you to Peter Kranz, a professor and thought leader whose years of work on race relations and the subject of racism in America has received national media attention. Mr. Kranz, I'm so proud to talk to you today. I just want everyone to really get a good look at your background. So I know that psychology is where your focus is. So what first interested you about psychology as a field of study?
Boy, I'd have to go back many years. I think growing up in a family where education was important and also connections with others, giving back, make the community a better place. All of these voices. And my older brother went into medicine. And so I thought I would go into psychology because it looked like the right avenue for me at the time. You know, I was still young and naive, but I think I made the right choice.
Yes, sir. So let's get into your education. Take me through your educational background and then tell me how you made the decision to actually focus on child psychology for your PhD.
Well, I thought that I could relate to children very well. Again, choices are made when you're very young, and growth is so important. But I got my bachelor's degree at Grinnell College, and then went on for my master's and PhD at Utah State University. And in between, I spent a year doing an internship at Oklahoma Medical Center. But what was significant was my year in Detroit at Merrill Palmer Institute, because we had to do something in the community. And I had a group of African-American teenagers at the Brewster Douglass Housing Project that the Supremes came out of.
And I remember this.
And Motown was just beginning. So I would go out there once a week and we would dialogue. Now, I want to catch you up. My first position was in Bakersfield, and I was very fortunate in 1970 to attend a race relations group run by Price Cobbs and Bill Greer, who wrote the famous book, Black Rage. In fact, the book written by Terrence Clark about my race relations work, we dedicated it to Price Cobbs. It's unfortunate he's no longer alive. But he was very instrumental in my growth. So attending the group there, it really inspired me and pushed me to want to do something within the community. I applied for a position at the University of North Florida. And this was key. In Jacksonville, Florida, deep south, they were going through the throes of integration, 1972, and I had an idea for a class because they had a venture study program, classes that were relevant to time and place. And I had no idea whether they would accept my idea, but here was my idea. I wanted to teach a course in race relations. The title became Conflict in Black and White because that was the demographics at the time. And I said to the committee, I want to keep the class even Steven, if I can, between race and gender. And they said, that shouldn't be an issue. I'm on a roll now. We'll get to it. I then said, I want to spend a weekend at a Black college or university because white students have never been in a minority situation, and this would be significant for their learning. And they said, fine, if you can work it out, fine. You know, and we went to Bethune-Cookman, Albany State, Savannah State, various classes over the 6-year period. Now we come to the biggie. I said to them, every student who takes my class, it'll be a requirement that they have to live with the other group for 1 week.
Wow.
That was unique, hadn't been done before, and that's where the real learning would take place. And they said, if you can find families, work it out, fine. So I got some faculty to help. I started in the community. I had no problem. And even students in the class started to volunteer.
Dr. Kranz, let me interrupt you for just a
Sure.
moment and take me back to that experience because
Sure.
it's fascinating, especially in light
Yeah.
of the issues that are a front burner issues in
Today.
the country right now. So
Yes.
we'll go back to that time.
Yes.
Tell me, was your approach to Black students and non-Black students different? And or was their response different?
Okay. I would start the class by being direct.
Mhm.
And I'll make up names. Jane, you're Black. How do you feel about white folks?
Mhm.
Tom, you're white. How do you feel? And then I would put it on the board. And before I knew it, it was overt, and then we could work with it.
Yes, sir.
White students, oh, I don't know whether I could trust them. Again, things came out. Black students, oh, there's an odor about them. All these things were listed. And I said, I want you to find out by spending real time with folks, whether what you feel, believe is really accurate.
Mm-hmm.
And the changes were very instrumental. But it was a very direct exploration. And at times people would get upset or angry. I did not permit any physical confrontation.
Absolutely.
I would break them up sometimes in groups. The inner group talked about their feelings of race. The outer group had to listen without comment until it was over, because I found that most of the students did not listen to each other, and I wanted them to hear, and it was very significant. And then I could switch the configuration.
Dr. Kranz, let me move you to present time now. What are your thoughts on how we talk about race now?
Well, it's not just a conversation. We've got to think of creative ways of bringing people together. Yeah, people can talk on and on and on and on. But what are we really doing? And this is where education comes in. The educational institutions. We could start there. What are we doing to really bring people together, to understand each other, rather than just talk? Because talk is not going to do it. Mm-hmm. We've got to get folks involved. And classes like I taught, I found really got folks involved. And that's what we really have to do.
And sir, to what do you attribute this resurgence of, I don't know how else to put it, but racism, the kinds of arguments and fights and battles that were supposed to have been long done? There's been a huge resurgence in our country.
Well, I don't think it was ever gone, number one. And number two, I think it's always kind of simmered below the surface in a lot of areas. Mm-hmm. And I think also what I have seen too is students still often isolate. If I would go to the student union, let's say at other schools, mm-hmm. students often would sit by their own group.
Correct.
There would be very little mixing. And I also see today a hostility politically, that we have two parties who can't even get along with each other, which is a shame.
It's always been my theory, especially since I worked in television for so long, that it is absolutely fine to disagree
Sure.
But the problem is when you are disagreeable, when you literally walk into a room with your fist balled up, ready to fight, not ready to compromise, not ready to see the other side in the least bit.
Well, that's why in the class, they had to listen to each other. That was so important. And when we dialogued at the Black universities, for them to hear. And what was interesting was how our students started to really connect with each other. So if somebody from the other school made a generalization, often the student from our class would jump in and say, hold it a minute, you're generalizing. And it was a terrific learning situation to see how the class was coming together because of what they shared, which really made it significant, being honest with each other. I may not have liked what you said, but let's take a look at it, work it through, etc.
I want to move actually to some of the work that you have done that's been recognized. What have been some of your proudest accomplishments in this field?
Well, my proudest accomplishments is the class.
Yes, sir.
About 100 students went through it. I thank the homes for helping out and the communities because it was interesting. Let's say in the Black community, a white student is staying over and the neighbor says, gee, I wonder why that white student has been there, and they come over and then they can get connected. So again, I would say the class itself.
Yes, indeed. And I know that you've been mentioned in, and your work has been mentioned in printed publications. And so congratulations on others recognizing the impact of your work. Dr. Kranz, what advice would you give other aspiring psychology educators in terms of picking a field of study that can impact on humanity the way yours clearly has?
Well, and I tell this to students too, get out there and risk. You don't know, no matter what you do, there'll be some folks who will approve and some won't. But if it's important and it could be a game changer, helping the community to change in a positive way, go for it.
In the words of Martin Luther King, we must learn to live together as brothers, or certainly perish together as fools. Thank you so very much, Dr. Kranz.
Thank you.